Greetings from a fishing village on the Atlantic coast. You've tuned in to Podcast Portwenn, celebrating the world of Doc Martin unofficially. I'm Chesley Wexler, and we'll be discussing Doc Martin, the medicine, the mayhem, and the marvelous people of Portwenn. Podcast Portwenn is an independent fan production, not affiliated with, endorsed by, or sponsored by Buffalo Pictures, ITV, Fox, or the creators of Doc Martin or Best Medicine. Today's episode features a know-it-all, that is, at least one guest, who has watched every episode of the show, possibly more than once. There's a realistic chance there are spoilers in here. Check the show notes to see where you should be in your own viewing. If you don't want to take the chance of learning something, this episode may not be for you. Today, we're joined by Rob Schorry, who I spoke to for the first time about 40 minutes ago. We met online because of Doc Martin. We will be discussing Martin and Louisa with a sub-theme of Season 2, which offers many opportunities for the two of them to encounter one another, but with a new twist. The arrival of Louisa's old beau, Danny Steele, London architect. So, Rob, come through and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Rob Schorry. I'm calling from Cincinnati, Ohio. I've been a Doc Martin fan, I suppose, since about 2011, when by accident I discovered this quirky little fishing village on our local PBS station. And oddly, it was during Season 2. And I saw Martin pick up a rock and break a window. I thought, what is this guy doing? And then he's in there administering first aid to Carolyn Bosman. And I could see this right away, this triangle between Martin and Louisa and Danny Steele. And I'm like, what is this all about? So I poked around online and found Season 1, and then that was me falling off the cliff into Portwenn, the Portwenn universe. And unfortunately, or otherwise, I went back and counted. I've probably written about 40, that's 40 fan fiction stories. Oh my God, about Doc Martin. So my wife would say I am Doc Martin obsessed, and I think she's correct.
It's not a bad way to live.
Well, fan fiction, as someone once said, allows us to see what happens away from the TV screen or the movie film. What if Mark Milo did marry Julie, and so on?
Yep. Yeah, it is true. It is a lot of fun to have the opportunity to fill those gaps with the fan fiction. So tell me about Louisa and how would you summarize what she's like, what we know about her after we're finished with Season 1 going into Season 2?
I think by the end of Season 1, she really has an appreciation for Martin, not just for his medical skills, but despite the armor that he's got his head encased in, there's a fragile human being in there. And as a teacher, I think she's drawn to draw him out. There's a scene in, which episode is it? It's the Portwenn Effect. Peter is accused of, destroying the bird feeders, and he ends up running away. And Martin and Mark find him trying to run off to wherever, and they bring him back. And there's this great scene in the school. Martin and Peter are sitting on a bench, and Louisa is talking to them. And she's theoretically addressing Peter Kronk, but she's saying, why do you always do this? Why don't you speak up for yourself? Right. She's also talking to Martin. And Martin and Peter both sit there, like they're in the headmaster's office. They're getting, taken to the woodshed, so to speak. And Martin is like, he's just looking at her. She's really telling him, why don't you speak up for yourself, Martin? And then I think by the time we get to the end of Season 1, that incredible scene in the ambulance, Peter Kronk is bleeding out with a torn artery. And Louisa looks at Martin. The kid's blood pressure is falling as BP is going away. And she looks at him and says, Martin! It's like, you have to do something, despite the hemophobia, which they just found out about in that episode.
Right, yes.
And then he performs surgery to save Peter's life. He goes ahead despite he knows this obvious deficit that he has. And then there's this incredible emotional bonding between Louisa. Louisa can see he's a great healer. He came through in the end. And then he messes it up in the taxi when she kisses him. He is brusque and blunt and rude, and he doesn't see people.
Hmm.
He sees patients. He sees cases, right? As a surgeon, he only sees bodies,
See,
right?
I disagree with that slightly in season one. Because in season one, I think we're introduced to a Martin who is absolutely gruff and rude, who doesn't say much, right? He's monosyllabic. But he does have the ability to smile, chuckle, have a droll, sort of snarky sense of humor. And he also shows, I think, a helpful side because,
Uh,
Lady Braiding, right? And she's having an affair on the colonel. And Martin accidentally exposes that with Ross, but then he tries to get them back together. He gives Al, an unnecessary IT support job. Martin can handle his own computer stuff because he just did, and yet
right.
he gives Al a job. He doesn't expose Bert as the source of the diarrhea, right? He could have thrown Bert under the bus, but he doesn't.
You're correct. You are absolutely 100% correct. And of course, now that could segue into a whole other part about why is the series one Martin different from the series two?
Mm-hmm.
And so we could blame part of that on Danny Steele. And also part on the production was said, you know what? If we make him really crabby, really grumpy, we can go a mile with this.
Yeah. And, if you wanted to write a plot arc that explains it, I mean, you could say that he gets worn down a lot by the village, right? So the villagers are constantly at him, and he certainly is not making any real effort to connect to the village. Other than
Oh, yeah.
Louisa, it's like Mark tries so hard to be his friend. And he even admits when Mark says, "Would you be my best man?" And Louisa's like, "Why wouldn't you do that? Like, I'm completely the wrong person. I don't know him one bit." She's like, "You never asked him anything." Correct. He
That's
didn't
right.
want to know,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah. He didn't need him.
Yeah.
And we saw in season one with Roger Fenn the way, Martin got Roger off to the hospital because of the throat nodule and this and that, got him properly diagnosed and treated. And I felt it unfortunate that Jeff Raleigh, the actor who played Roger Fenn, left the show because he got a different job. Good for him.
Hmm.
Um, but that could have been a whole other thing with Jeff, with Roger and Martin. But again, Martin has got this armor that he's built. There's a scene where everybody's having a party, a blowout down on the Platte, and Martin is up there on his front stoop, right? He's
Hmm.
staring down there. And Louisa looks up at him and he looks down at her. And it's like there's this huge gulf between the two. She can see it. She wants him down there with her, but he's not. He's up there. And what does he do? He turns around, goes in the house, and closes the door.
Yeah. You get the sense that he's tempted, like there's a little look on his face, but he can't do it. He just can't bring
He,
himself to do
he,
it.
he can't do it. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, he's incredibly shy
Mhm.
at times. Especially when it comes to real emotions, right? That make sense other than yelling and screaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
He
anyway,
reminds me of like the dog that's been kicked too much.
hmm
All right, the beaten dog, because he just even he can bark, he snarls and barks all the time, which keeps people at a distance.
yes,
But when somebody tries to show him affection, he expects it to be just more pain. And
yeah,
he doesn't want it's not worth it to him.
and he doesn't know what to do with signs of friendship or companionship. He
Hmm.
doesn't know it. Yeah, because he expects a slap
Hmm.
or a kick.
Yeah. We'll talk about the Louisa and Danny Steele dynamic.
Oh boy. Well, okay. So end of season one, right? It's
Hmm.
like, wow, they kissed, and yeah, he dropped the ball there. Uh, And of course, in the very first scene, we see Louisa buying mouthwash,
Right.
right? She's going to make sure her breath doesn't smell bad. And then Danny Steele appears as if out of nowhere. And Martin, Danny, Louisa. Oh, and Danny is all chummy. He's back here because his mom is sick and this and that. And here's Louisa. And they were in grade school or whatever together.
Hmm.
And I think Danny expects he's just going to pick up right where they left off. Although it sounded like there was some friction there.
I do know he was very career focused, right? So he was
Oh
just,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
right. He went off to London and all kind of stuff. Anyway, so he's back in town, and yeah, it sounds like he's going to stay, and he starts sucking up to Louisa. Meanwhile, Martin is like looking from afar, going, "I don't like this." Danny is the literary wedge driven between them, and of course, it's set up beautifully. This great triangle. Danny is really trying to get close to Louisa, and Louisa, I think, is a bit taken aback by this. Like, when he suggests that they get married, and she's like, "What?
Yeah.
Do you mean that?"
Think it's interesting how Martin, I binged season 2 over the weekend. Um, he really tries to give her space with Danny, if you notice. Like he doesn't try to break in or win her back per se. He just, I wouldn't say he surrendered her, but he's sort of like, okay, this is happening. I don't know what to do about it. And it's not until Mark kind of, the whole thing with Julie fell apart and Louisa gives Mark credit for just going for it. And he's like, are you going
Yes.
to go for it with the architect?
Right. Yeah. 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 And yet, and I think part of Martin that British fans or fans in the UK will recognize this British reticence.
Hmm.
Don't don't make waves. As you said, Louisa and Danny seem to be a couple. Martin was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to get in the way. I'm just going to. I have to step aside. Don't mess it up. Um, and of course, as things progress, we have more opportunities for Danny to mess up and seem to be overly sanctimonious a number of times. Um, and of course, Martin kind of gets his when he has to save Danny's life for a collapsed lung.
Right.
Um, and as he's injecting him, I think he says to Danny, "Just a little prick."
Yes. But the way he says it,
Yeah, as he's injecting him, it's like, dude, you're a tosser. You're moving in on my girl, but I don't know what to do about it. But I'm going to jab you in the arm.
just a little prick.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Um, but, and then of course, Danny is like, oh, suddenly out of the blue, he gets this job opportunity and he's going to leave. And Louisa just says, Danny, you have to choose.
Hmm.
I'm going to be here. I know where you're going to be. I'm going to be here. He says, well, I have to go to London. She says, fine, go, just
Hmm.
go. And that's it. And then right then, it's like a switch is flipped. And then, however, the scene is set up, there's Martin, and he says, well, where's Danny? She says, he's gone
Hmm.
off to London. And then she says to him, you stay right here. And
That's
he
right.
says,
Don't you move a muscle.
don't you move. Stay right here. And she goes and gets 2 bottles of red wine.
That is one of my favorite scenes in the entire series because not only is it just so telling and fun, but I think the two actors just do a phenomenal job playing two very drunk people because they don't slur, they don't overplay it. There's
No.
just a there's just a heaviness about Martin. Like he's as precise as ever with uncorking the bottle, but
Yeah.
you see how he's moving and he's just not sharp. And Louise is more Cornish than ever with the accent and speaking very slowly. Just I thought it was beautifully done.
Yeah. And of course, in vino veritas, in wine there is truth. Their shackles have been removed, and
Hmm.
now he says, I loved you from the first I saw you.
Hmm. And it's just I've just been trying to catch a glimpse of you.
Yeah, every
Hmm.
day. Because he's entranced by her. He's
Yeah.
excited by her. He wants to be around her. If he can't be with her, at least he wants to see her.
Right. And it's a healthy see her. I mean, it's just,
Yeah,
I
takes
just
the
think
first.
you are
Yeah,
a beautiful person, you're beautiful physically, but you're a beautiful person.
right. Yeah.
And I just want to be in your presence.
Well, and she says to him, basically, well, I thought, we'd come up here, I'd get you a little drunk, maybe seduce you, which is a bit of a hanging chad for what might happen next if he hadn't crashed out on the table.
And hanging Chad, for anybody in Britain, is a U.S. term for basically it's sort of something that might fall and
Yeah.
might go one
Yeah.
way, might go another.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We don't know. It's certainly a hook for future episodes. And of course, the next morning, he wakes up and there's the dog lying with him, and he's covered in wine, and it's a mess. And his head is so messed up. I mean, from the wine and the hangover,
Hmm.
and what Louisa said to him, and what he said to her.
And does he remember it accurately? Does he have a memory of it?
Well, she comes by and makes a joke about getting the after morning pill, and he goes, "What?" He says, "Oh, it's all right, Martin. Nothing happened."
But it's as if he has no memory of telling her that he loved her because she's like, I wanted to tell you too, Martin, that I loved you too. And he's like, well, love, we barely know each other, right? He has like no recollection of this.
Apparently not. So yeah, whether that was from the alcohol or the hangover, or he just put it out of his mind,
Huh.
or that his expression of love for her was buried so deep.
Mhm.
He was so guarded. It was only when he was rip roaring drunk that it could come out.
And just before he passes out, too.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, not
And
for nothing, man. I don't know how you felt, but when he smacks his head on the low beam, I felt his pain. Like I just almost like my whole body was like, oh my God.
well, I saw some interview Martin Clunes said about the doc. He's this awful person, so we just have to smack him in the head. I mean, we saw that in the very first episode of season one, where he runs into the door. He said something, outre, right, and then he's punished. You know,
But he's actually not. I mean, he diagnoses her glaucoma, and then they call him in to get the results of his
she
interview.
leaves. Yeah,
And she tells him, you step out of line one little bit, right? And then as he's walking in, he's trying to keep his eye on her.
and
And
he runs right into the door.
yep,
Wham!
yep.
Right there. The universe is punishing him because he's such a git. Right? He's a tosser. And but the heck of it is, this flawed, broken individual, right? Horribly abused by his parents, we find out later. Um,
Hmm.
had managed to put the pieces together in a way that he was a brilliant surgeon. He was a brilliant teacher.
Hmm.
He's not the kind of guy you're going to want to have come over and have a beer with, because
Hmm.
it's like he's going to sit there and talk about kidney stones and stripping out veins, varicosities, which kind of makes you think, why get into clock repair? Again, it's meticulous. It's great hand-eye coordination. He's solving a puzzle. Why does this clock not work? Very much like medicine, right?
Yes.
But yet he can control the clock. He can fix the clock. He can replace bearings. He can grease it. He can replace the mainspring. He can fix the clock in many ways better than he can a human being,
Yeah.
right?
And it's a solo activity too.
I'm just going to say that it's a very solo activity. He can
Hmm.
sit there all night if he wants to, working on a clock.
Yep.
And of course, people rip on him sometimes about later on he gets about those knackered old clocks.
Hmm. Yes.
But to him, that is a challenge to put it back together.
Yeah.
So by some extension, perhaps repairing the clocks is something that he completely has control of. Nobody else is bothering him. He doesn't need anybody when he's doing it. And it's the solitary hobby that some of us have. But yet most of us have enough sense to come out of the workshop once in a while and talk to people.
Because it's safe.
Because yeah. So yeah, in a sense, when he's there working the clock, it's kind of his own safe space. But
Hmm.
Louisa clearly is drawn to the guy, despite the fact he's a tosser. He's a brilliant surgeon. He's a great doctor. Someone probably has sat down and counted how many villagers he saved the lives of
Hmm.
during the 10 seasons.
And what does she see in him? Because I was trying to analyze. It's like he obviously finds her to be beautiful. I think she also unlike a lot of the folks in the village who, rip him a new one constantly, right? It comes from a position of care, like she wants him to be better. It's not
Yes.
just she thinks he's an ass.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, part of that is the teacher. She's taking that closeted kid who is having difficulties, not just in the classroom, but she can see that as well. And she's trying to patch him up.
Mhm.
And at one point, he makes an outburst that I don't need you to make excuses for me.
Right.
And he sees that as interference. She sees it as helping him. Right? The show turned into lightning in a bottle, and the characters were so well written, wonderfully fleshed out by the great actors that they
Mhm.
picked.
Mhm.
Um, and Martin Clunes did once say that there was some concern about Carolyn Katz because she had always either played victims of violent crime or police officers
Oh, right, and she didn't have the comedy chops, right?
that, yeah, didn't have the comedy chops, but found out that, that was not a problem for her.
Mhm.
And Martin Clunes said that he just loved doing scenes with Louisa. It was
Yeah.
just so great. And you could see that great chemistry
Yeah.
on the screen. Clunes said that this should be one of the great love stories, but when they get together, it's crashing cars and blowing horns, and it's nothing ever goes right.
Yeah. And
Uh,
like you said, the writing is phenomenal, and one of the things that I appreciate about it is it's not played for laughs. It's a I don't even know what you call it. I always say it's a drama that's a comedy, or is that a dramedy? I don't know, but
it's a dramedy of some kind,
yeah.
yeah.
So that they're just telling stories, incredibly well written, incredibly well acted, and beautifully filmed in a gorgeous location. And the comedy just happens because these characters interplay in such amusing ways, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. And let's come back to the question: why is Louisa attracted to him?
Mhm.
Well, let's look at Portwenn. It's a small village. There's fishermen. Who's she going to go hang out with? Al Large? He's too young. She's
Mhm.
known him since he was a baby, right?
Right.
They're friends, but there's not going to be love.
There's Mark, who, of course, thinks that, have you ever seen how she moves?
Oh yeah, yeah. And he makes a comment to Martin about the girl of your dreams. And of course, later there's a dream sequence where
Yeah.
Louisa is in Martin's bed.
Yeah. I love when Martin says, how do you know that she's the woman of my like, no, no, no.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
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 And yeah, and Mark Milo, he's kind of he's a clown. Not much happens in town. Why do you have a cop there? And
Yes.
he, you
See,
know,
I'm very partial to Mark.
okay,
Like, if there was a Mark versus Joe, if there were camps,
yeah.
I'm firmly in the Mark camp, and I think Joe is a clown. He's just
Oh,
so
oh yeah.
incompetent, right?
I
Mark?
I once observed, or maybe well, I thought that Mark Milo was a sad clown,
Mm.
the depressed clown, and Joe Peniel is the goofy clown. He's the happy clown. You
I
know.
I just find that there's an innocence somehow. I mean, Mark is just so naive, right?
Oh yeah,
And he's neurotic, and he's
yeah,
just Mark,
and
and he's a
and when
heck of a flying tackle when he grabs Peter Kronk. Because
yes,
I mean, I was watching the filming of that, and I'm thinking, I think that was Stuart Wright, because it sure seems, I'm sure that you can fake the very ending when you're like just maybe diving off your feet and grabbing the kid, but looks like a great flying tackle.
oh yeah, um, but I I agree with Mark. Even when faced with all the evidence that he is sterile
Hmm.
and Julie, his fiance, is pregnant, he's like, well, hey doc, all it takes is one.
Well, yeah, he doesn't even realize it's zero at the time. Yeah.
And because he's convinced that, well, that's his baby and he's going to marry her and
Hmm.
all's going to be well with the world.
Yep.
Um, uh,
And he really does go after, and that's one place where you see Mark really lose it, in the sense of, okay, all this time he's been trying so hard to be Martin's friend, and now Martin's giving him this horrible news, and he just is like, I've tried so hard to be your friend, and you can't have what I got, and you're just jealous about it. And boy, he
yeah,
just lays into Martin, and he's upset, right? He doesn't like what he's hearing from Martin, so there's a little bit of just hurt and all that coming out. But you get a sense that there's this buildup of resentment that being shunned constantly.
Yeah. He's certainly lashing out at him,
Hmm.
and with good reason.
Yeah, because
And
he's
with
not
good
shunned.
reason.
Mark is not shunned by the rest of the village. Mark is their bud. I mean, when he tries to apprehend the mugger, right, with the whole Eddie Ricks thing, he gets a card. He's like the town hero, right?
Yeah, right.
And he
And
seems to know every child in town by name, like, okay, so and so, you don't get to school, whatever. So,
yeah, hurry up. Yeah.
hmm
Um, yeah. Well, he's been there a long time, and Martin shows up from London. He's a toff from London, right? Wearing a suit, driving this wonderful Lexus, and clearly they know that. Well, he doesn't fit. He's the puzzle piece that will never fit. Doc Martin could live in Portwenn for 30 years, and he would still not fit. He'd always be just a little bit off.
hmm
But people would say, yeah, he's a tosser, but he's our tosser,
right, yes,
you
he's
know,
one of us now in his own strange way.
in his own strange way. And let's
Yeah.
face it, there's a lot of weird, we've got Stuart James, the forest ranger,
hmm
with Anthony in the woods. Um, we've got Eddie Ricks and his wife who are
Yes.
into kinky games.
Yep.
Uh, you know, I saw an interview with Tristan Sturrock, who plays Danny Steele, and he said that they say that Cornwall is like the toe of the Christmas stocking. That's where all the nuts roll into.
That's very good.
You know,
Yep.
and Tristan is a Cornishman, born and
I
bred.
didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah, so he's certainly he's allowed to say that,
Right.
and
Right.
that's where all the nuts are.
Yep. I envy that you watched the series starting basically in season 2. One thing that I'm very good at predicting what's going to happen next. Um, with plots. My husband hates it because I'll
Yeah.
just be telling him it's going to do this, and 9 out of 10 times I'm right. But because we had 9 seasons in the can when I started watching,
Mm.
there were plot hangers that kind of he can't be killed in this because there's 3 more seasons, right? You're like, so
Right.
there's
Yeah.
things that because more episodes exist. What was it like to have to wait?
Oh dear. Well, because we saw them every 2 years.
Hmm.
Season 2 was filmed right after season 1. I mean, within the next year.
Hmm.
Um, I was catching up with PBS right after season 3, I guess, or 4. But yeah, so anyway, so as they rolled out and got to the American market, right, it was typically in the fall.
Hmm.
We would see it, and so it was. Oh, Doc Martin, it's coming to PBS. And my wife said, "You're obsessed with it." I said, "Yeah, but it's So now on streaming we watch um, many British mysteries with the subtitles turned on, of course.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, waiting to find out what's going to happen. So there would be a cliffhanger at the end of whatever season, and then we had to wait 2 years to find out what's going to happen.
Hmm.
Oh my! And the writers really pulled out some great scripts. I mean, every episode was
Hmm.
just fantastic, and this
Yeah.
huge story arc. I
Hmm.
mean, not just from series to series, but across the whole thing. And I've read that Philip Braithwaite basically was the Bible keeper, and people would write scripts and bring them in, and she go, "Nope, nope, that's not going to work. Go away, work on it some more." But they had a whole year between the ending of one set of filming to starting another, so they could really hone the knives. They could really get it right. And the show is certainly a testament to a production schedule like that and the great care that they took with these characters.
I agree. Yeah.
I mean, my
Yeah.
wife watching it with me, she would say, How can she bear to be with him?" So, the eternal question of what makes love, Martin would say it's a biological reaction, uh, because that's Martin. But, that scene on the airplane, the very first episode of season 1, he looks at her and it's like he's staring at her and she's looking back. She's thinking, oh, is this guy's interested in me? He's staring at me? Is he a creep? What? But the way he's staring at her, then she thinks, oh, he really is a creep. And the famous, you've got problem. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Into the camera, you've got
Mm-hmm.
problem.
Yep.
And then she, moves over. But then we find out later he was staring at her eye because
Right.
he's diagnosing the eye.
And that whole scene sets it up, right? I mean, you've
Yeah,
got this
he
sort
doesn't
of
see this beautiful woman. Really, he sees her eye, which is semi-fixed pupil. It's like, that's not right. So, which says why he's such a great diagnostician.
yeah.
He could
And
ignore everything else and focus on what's medically wrong.
and I think she appreciates his constancy when you learn about her upbringing because I mean, she even says in season 2 in the whole drinking scene, like, and you're
Mm,
just what it says on the tin, Martin Ellingham. Like he is
yeah,
consistent
yeah,
the entire 10 years. I mean, he is just who he is. And
hmm,
it's to
yeah,
me, I've always I haven't when people are like what brings them together and why what is the chemistry and all that. Um, it, it seems like if you could kind of on the surface sum it up that he thinks she's beautiful and she's spirited. She has a backbone so she can manage to survive how he treats people.
hmm,
Most people don't
yes.
survive that, right? They
No,
go
they don't. They
away and
give
they
up.
don't come back, but she comes back so he can kind of get used to her and trust her that she's always going to be there for him because she's always trying. He certainly doesn't want to lose that. And then for her, she definitely admires the type of doctor that he is, the kind of man he is, the kind he is who he is, and she's he's not going to betray her.
Yeah, he in one of the later series, in the penultimate episode of that series, she says, "You never gave up on me.
Right.
You never gave up on me." And yeah, Louisa, a broken home. Her mom took off. Um, Her father, not a good guy. He lied. He
Hmm.
cheated. He stole. He stole from the lifeboat fund. Oh my God, how terrible
How
could that
terrible is that?
be?
Yeah.
And she stood up for him. And it was only later when she found out that was the truth, her head exploded. You know, Terry Wesson comes back to town, and she weighs that on. She finds out that that is the truth, and so any trust that she had in the guy right then was like gone.
Hmm.
Now we all, well, I've had family members who grew up in bad circumstances, and from what I've been told, there is this: they love that person who hurt them. They don't understand why they hurt them, but they still love them in spite of it,
Hmm. Hmm.
a little bit. And that's the way Louisa is with her dad. But smart a smart girl, young woman growing up in this fishing village of diminished with no money. Her mom's gone, and you can imagine how the tongues would wag.
I've always wanted to use that great line from On the Edge where Martin tells the physician's friend, Gavin Peters, "Can I stop you right there?" and then walks away. I hope you've enjoyed Rob's know it all fan view of Martin and Louisa's relationship, loosely tied to season 2. I'm sorry we never got your video working, Rob, and your audio got flaky at the end there, but soon we'll have a professional's view of the psychology of Portwenn, seasons 1 through 3. There will be obviously some overlap given the central nature of Martin and Louisa to those seasons, but I hope you enjoy the new perspective. If you've enjoyed our episode, please like it and consider subscribing to the feed so you know when new episodes are available. Until next time, take care, folks.